Hello guys, in this video we will see how to work with room database and then let's create a node application. So there will be a upcoming series going on where we will be going through step by step to create a nodes application. So this will be the end result of our project. Here we have something search, we have some colors here. This is sorting out the nodes into priorities, and then we have floating action bar. Here we can add nodes here, and then when we click it, we are getting added the nodes there. And then once we click on to the node, so you can just edit the node and save and delete the node as well. So once you delete, it is going back, and then it is all working in a database. So once you go back and come, still the data will be available in the application. So we'll just create this application. I have already created an empty project here. Basically, mainly there are 2-3 things which we will be needed to create this. So one is a model, so that what is the data we are going to enter, or a structure of a table. You can name it as an entity. So entity will be having our ID, name, title, etc. things, all those things, the model of our data. And then we will have a DAO, we will have a database creation, we will have repository, we will have a view model, and then the fragments. So basically what's happening, I'll just show you the documentation of Android. Okay, here you can see a diagram here. So first we have UI class of fragments, and that goes to the live data, which is view model, and that goes to DAO and entity, which is room, and then that goes to SQLite database. So basically you can't access the SQL database directly from the fragment. So we are going step by step. So from fragment we will be calling view model. So view model will refer to repository. Repository will be referring to DAO, and DAO, it will communicate with SQLite database and then get the data. So it will go back like this, and then at last we will be receiving our data. So we will just quickly create all of those. So yeah, I'll just create a package which will be model. So inside our model we need our data. So I'll just add a data class, and I'll just name it as node. Inside our node data class we will add an ID, so val ID, which is of type int, and then we will add a title which will be of type string, and then we will add data which will also be as type string. So here we have our nodes database. So before that we need to add some packages or dependencies. So we'll go here and just I'll just paste the dependencies here. Once you will be getting these dependencies in the description. So, and we have to add a plugin here, so Android kapt, and then we'll just sync it. So we are adding the dependencies of room, and we are adding of view model live data, and then we also will be using coroutines. Right, so we'll go to our data class, and then we are creating an entity. So we will just annotate it with entity. So and then we will have to give the name, so table name. So we will just give the table name as note table, and then we have to also create a annotation for our primary key. So always a table will have a primary key, so we'll just create a primary key and just import it. This primary key will be auto increment, so we'll just create auto generate as true, so that once we add and once we insert an item into our database, so this ID will be auto generated, like from 1 2 3 it will just increment. And so we are done with our model. Now let's create our DAO. So for that I'll just add a package name called as data. So inside my data I'll just add an interface, so interface, so and I'll name it as node DAO. So my node DAO also should be annotated with DAO. We'll just import it. Yes. So basically what DAO is, DAO will communicate directly with our database. So we will just write the queries, insert query, delete query, all the queries will be inside a DAO interface. So let's just create a suspend function. I'll create insert, and then I'll just name it as note. I'll import this as well. Right, we have one function here. So before this function we have to annotate it with insert. We already have auto queries, like for insert, delete we have, update also we have the auto query, and for getting all the data we will be writing our own query. So we have insert, and then we will have to write on conflict equal to on conflict strategy dot ignore, so that when you try to insert a similar node it will just ignore it. And then we will write another query for ourselves. So this query will have select star from the table name, so the node table order by ID in descending order. So this is our query. So we'll write a function also for this, get all nodes, and this function will be a live data. So live data of list of node. So I hope you understood this. So get all nodes is all the nodes of type node, so that once we select all the node we will be having list of nodes, right? So we are getting the value as a live data of list of nodes. So this is our DAO here. So here suspend function is because it will be working on the background, so that we don't get any issues. So we are done with our DAO. Now let's just create a database. So for that I'll just create a class, and I'll just name it as node database. Okay, so this class will be abstract class, and this will be annotated with database. We'll just import it. So as a parameter we have three things. So one will be our entities, which is our node, class. We'll just import our node here. So one is our node class, another is our version. So version is our 1, and then we have export schema, which will be false. So basically we have three things: entities, which is our node, this is our entity like data, like the model of the data. Version is for now it is 1. When you try to update it, when you basically upload on Play Store or somewhere, when you publish it, this will matter a lot, like you have to change the version and manage all the database properties so that users data is not getting leaked or anything. And the export schema is basically, for now it is false, no need to understand much about it. So inside this there are a lot of things to do it. So we'll just quickly go through our documentation. So create a database instance, we have created entity, and then we have created the DAO. Now to create the database instance, let's just check out the code here, right? So we have this annotated with our database, and then we have the abstract class. We are telling that we will be extending it with a room database, and then we have some of the things here. So I'll just copy this and then explain it here. I'll just paste it here, and then let's just extend it with room database and our DAO. So this will be our node DAO. This is also our node DAO. So we are making a function, abstract function for node DAO, and then we have our companion object. So here will be our node database, node database, here also the node database, and here also our node database, and we'll just change the database name to node database. Okay, so let's me just explain it. So we have an abstract class here, so it is extended with room database, and we have a function for node DAO. You will get to know why we are using this once we finish all of the code setup of our room database. And then we have a companion object. It is annotated with volatile, and it is having an instance. So it is basically checking for instance which is of type node database, and it is given it as null as primarily. And then we have a function for get database. So in this get database, it actually checks for the instance. If instance is already available, it will just return the instance. If it is not available, it will just create an instance. So here instance means our database. If a user's application is already having the similar database inside the same directory, it will just return that instance back. If it is not having, if it is a new user, then it will just create a database with this name and then return the instance back. So this is what we are creating the database here, and we have the DAO, we have the model. Now we need the repository. So I'll just add another package which will name it as repository, and inside this package we will add a class named as node repo. So this repository will be communicating with the DAO. So for that we need DAO here. So we'll just create a private val node DAO as node DAO, and inside our node repo we will be calling all the remaining functions. That is, we have, for now we have two things we are doing inside our DAO, which is insert and getting all nodes. So we will just add that. So we will create a value, so val all node, which is of type live data of list of node. We'll just import this node here. That is equal to node DAO dot get all nodes. So I think now you have got some idea about a repository. So repository will have the value of all nodes. This will be accessed via view model. Okay, so view model will call a repository and get the value of all nodes. So all nodes is having live data of a list of nodes. So this will be assigned by the DAO. So this DAO, so DAO gets it from database, right? So this gets it directly from database, and from DAO repository takes the value, and from repository view model gets the value, and from view model we will be passing the value to our fragments. So this is for our get all nodes. So and then now we will just create another suspend function for insert. We are just inserting the value, right? So for that here we will get two things, one parameter which is node, and this will have to call node DAO dot insert, and we have to pass the node. Okay, so once we call the function insert of repository and pass the node, it will call node DAO and then it will insert this node, right? So inside our node DAO it is inserting command here, so that it will just insert this thing into our database. So here we are done with our repository also. So you can add multiple things here. So function, when we do Step by step we will be keep on adding all those things. Now for now I have just kept getting all the nodes and inserting the. Now we have to create a view model. So for that I'll just create another package and just name it as view model, and inside our view model I'll just create a new class and just name it as node view model, and this model will be extended with Android view model, and this will have application, and here node view model will also have a constructor of application. Okay, so here we have created our node view model. Now we will have to create repository. So we need something to refer our repository, right? So for that we will just create a private val repo, which is our type node repo, which is of type node repo, and then we will also create a private val all node, which is of type live data, which is list of node. I'll just import this also. And before we starting, we have to call. So we'll create an init, so that once the view model is called, before that we are working on this. So for that we need we will be creating more two things here. So you can see to our repository we have to pass a DAO. So we need to create the DAO here because we are accessing repository from this place only. So we'll just create a val DAO equal to node database dot get database, and we have to pass through the context is application, and then we will just refer a node DAO. So you can see I said we will be talking about this node DAO later. So this node DAO abstract function node DAO, which is of type node DAO, we are calling that function and then we are storing the value into our DAO. Now we will call the repo. So repo equal to node repo of our DAO. Now we can add the value to our all nodes. So all node will be equal to repo dot all node, right? So that inside our all node we have already the live data of all nodes. Now to get the insert function, so for that we have to create a function here. So function insert, which will have node of node, which is equal to view model scope dot launch. So inside this we have dispatches dot io, and inside this we will be calling our repository. So repo dot insert, and we will pass our node, right? Okay, now everything is ready for now the setup. Now we have to create the fragments and then display and insert our nodes. So we'll just go from back once. So here this is our view model. It is having a constructor of application, which is of type application, and then we are extending it with a Android view model. And inside this we have two variables, which is repo and all nodes, which is of type node repo, and then all nodes is a live data of list of nodes. And then we have an init function, which means this will be called before anything else, right? So inside this we have a DAO. We are calling the DAO from the, like we are getting the DAO from our node database. Okay, let me just go and show you to the place. Node database dot get database. So what's happening there? This is our node database, and then we have a function get database, and we are passing the context as application, and then we are getting the instance. So this will be returning with an instance, and then we are calling node DAO. So that for now we are getting the access to our DAO. Okay, and then in repository, repo equal to node repo.dow. So inside our repository, if we check, we are asking for a constructor which is dow, which is of type dow. So to access this node repo, we will be requiring this. So we are providing that also from our view model, and then we have now the access to our repository. Now we have the access through our repository. We will fill our all node with our repository.all nodes. So here when you go repository.all nodes is getting the value from node dow get all nodes. Like if you go to node dow and get all nodes, here you have a live data list of nodes, and this is running basically a query which is select star from node table ordered by id, right? So this is communicating with our database, and it is getting the value from there, and it is storing. It will return to something which calls this function. So when we go check out here, so so here we are asking repository and asking to get the value of all nodes. So inside our repository, all node is getting the value from dow, right? So that is what happening in our init, and we have a function for insert which works similarly, and this is using coroutines, where we are working with background thing, where when you try to insert nothing is stuck or something, it is working in background. So here we have similar thing, view model scope launch dispatcher IO, and then we have calling the function repo.insert node. We are inserting the node to, we are calling the function insert from the repo. So we will just check the repo. So this repo has a suspend function insert, and it is getting the parameter node, and then what this function does, it's basically calling the dow, and then it is telling insert this node. So we'll go to dow, and when we see here, we have an insert query here, and then this function is basically inserting this node, which means this will go and insert the value into our database. And this is our node. So this is our table, node table. It is annotated with entity, and we have a primary key auto generated true id, and then we have title and data for now. Next we will just create fragments and then try to insert the values into our database. That is all about in this video. Thank you.